Creating files and folders is rather easy to accomplish in a standard Unix shell. But how can we solve the challenge of doing that in Ruby, in some sort of an automated way? Well, we use FileUtils. This module mimics most of the file operations available in such an environment, and I'm going to explain you by example how we can use some of them. Let's start by requiring the FileUtils library. From here, we'll have access to the FileUtils module. So the example I want to demonstrate is the one of creating a standard folder structure for a Ruby project. Let's try and figure that out. So I want to achieve something like this. I want a bin folder with a demo executable file, a gem file, a rake file, and a lib directory with a demo directory inside, a demo.rb file there, and then, as for the test folder, it has a demo folder as well, and the test helper. So how do we achieve this? Well, we're going to reach out to FileUtils to do so. So let's start by defining some variables. I'm going to define a root variable, a current directory as well, so that we can keep track of this current directory, for which we have one single template, and finally a project name. As you saw before, we have demo all over the place. That's the name of the project. Now, as the root directory, I want to store it in /temp/demo. Wait for it, we should put this at the very end and make it the project's folder to match the project name. Now, as for the current directory, we're actually going to resort to dir.pwd. The result of typing something like that is going to be the current directory. Let me show you really quick by typing pry in the command line and typing that instruction right away. You will see that we are in the projects folder, our very own. And this folder actually has another one with a single template that we're going to use later in the video. Now let's focus on what we were doing. We have the project name and the current directory, and now we have the root of the project we want to store it in. Our objective is to go to the root folder and create all the files in there. For that, we're going to resort to fileutils.cd, and we'll pass a block to it in order to scope our file operations inside that folder, and when the block is ended, then we're going to return to our folder. If you don't pass a block and just type in cd root, you will be staying in that directory. The dir.pwd command would retrieve a different result, but we don't want that. So pass a block and name your argument, for example, dir. Now inside this block, we're going to be going to this folder. And now we're going to copy some files and folders. One utility we want to resort to is the makedir command. Actually, makedir_p is more appropriate because we want to recursively add the parent folders if they don't exist. One thing that I want to mention is that we want to make sure that that tree is respected. So what I'm going to do is type in tree-big C and then /temp/demo. This way we'll have a reference of what we need to copy and create. So we want to build a series of different folders. Let's start by creating an array and looping through each of them, and thus we'll be able to create one folder at a time. So we'll use makedir_p and directory, because that's the variable that's referring to each different folder in this array. The folders we want are bin, then lib/demo, and test/demo. Because we have this _p option, we're going to create the lib directory for this demo one and the test folder as well for this reference. At the end, we're going to have a bin folder, a lib folder with the demo folder as well, and test with the demo folder inside. Let's move on to what we need to do next. We want to copy some files as well, or rather touch some files, just make sure they exist. So we're going to create the same kind of array with words, and we want the bin/demo file, the rake file. Let's also pass the gem file, and we still need lib/demo.rb, and then test/testhelper.rb. I don't think I'm missing any folder that respects the structure, so let's loop through each of them. For each one of them, we'll create a file through the following instruction: FileUtils, touch, and then the file. That's it. For each one of these files, we're going to touch the system in order to create that file. Remember, we're still in the directory that we specified in the root variable. So let's see if this actually works. I mean, if everything were to be okay, we should have the same tree structure. I'm going to create a mapping that will basically run this file under Ruby. If you want to try it yourself, type in Ruby and then fileutils.rb in your directory. Don't forget that. So let's try and do it. I'm going to run this, and it seems that we have some sort of an error. Project name is not defined for main. Well, basically we need to add in an equal sign here, and in here we're actually going to interpolate the actual project's name. This is actually pretty good that Ruby told us about this. Let's try and run this again, and this time the output is empty. Most likely we didn't have any errors, so what we want to do is execute the same command as before and make sure that the output is the same. Allow me to clear the screen first, and there you go. Now, bin and demo are there, the gem file, lib and demo, the demo.rb inside, then the rake file, test folder, demo folder, and the test helper.rb. Wonderful work. So we have accomplished everything we wished for. But I want to propose a different challenge. I want to add something up to it. I want to have a list of templates that will basically be copied to that root project. At this point in time, I just want to copy the gem file. The reason for that is I have a gem file in the FileUtils folder, as you can see in your own repository. This is the file right here. It points out to the public server for the Ruby gems, and then a couple of them, like Minitest, the utils gem, and also pry-bybug. I usually like to include these in order to ease in my development process. So what I want to do here is I want to copy this file into the root instead of just creating a blank file. I'll remove it from the list of files to be created, and for each of the files in this array, I'm going to copy them. So fileutils.copy using cp. Actually, copy is also good, and I just paste in the file and then the destination. I want to use the current folder because this should be on the top of the project. Remember, we're using cd with the root, so our scope is the top of the project. Let's see if this now works. I'm going to run this, and it seems that we have an error. Let's see. There's already a file in there. Oh, okay, that's actually a pretty good thing. Remember that Ruby is not actually removing the project each time we run this script. So it might be a good thing to resort to another command called fileutils.remove_rf. We pass in the root of the project because we want to remove every single file in this project. Also, let's make sure that we create that file, otherwise, if we do this without creating the folder, we'll get an error because the folder doesn't exist. It did before because I already had the folder, so we're going to create it again using fileutils.makedir and root. We don't need _p because for this project, we know for sure that the temp folder is already there. However, if you feel that for some reason the folders don't exist in your path, then go ahead and use _p. We can leave it at this, there's really no problem. So we're going to remove the root folder and create it all over again. Let's run the script, and this time you can see that gem file is really not there. Oh, of course. Well, we're trying to copy a file that's on top of our own generator. So if I open the File Explorer, the gem file is actually in a FileUtils folder. So we're going to reach out to that. Let's create a string in which we'll interpolate the file name and pass in FileUtils/ the name of the file to the current folder. Remember that the file will only consider the name, not the previous folders. Let's run this script, And this time we see that, oh, it seems that we have a syntax error on line 20. Let's go to line 20. Oh yes, I forgot to add in this closing string quote. Let's run it again. And now FileUtils/gem file isn't there. Remember when I defined the current directory? Well, that was the main purpose. I want to make sure that I give the full path for our template location, so we'll inject that current directory as well. So current directory inside the interpolation /FileUtils/file. Let's run the script again, and this time we get no errors. Everything went smoothly. So if I run this tree command again, everything is still there, but I actually want to go ahead and check the contents for that file. So going to /temp/demo and then gem file, I just want to print the contents, so I use the cat instruction in the command line, and there's our content with the source instruction and the 3 gems. Wonderful work. You can see that we've used several of the utilitarian functions in the FileUtils module. We removed an entire folder, created it again, and then for each of the folders we created the proper directories. We have created some files even though they're empty, and we've copied a file based on the template. There's one more thing that I want to do. Remember that the demo binary file, this one right here, needs to be executable. So what we'll do here, specifically for this file, is called the chmod command, and then we want to make sure that it is executable. We use this octal number to make sure that whoever is owning this file can read, write, and access the file, and the remaining ones can only read and run the file. So we use that, and then bin/demo. And that's all we want. The chmod util, if you don't know, changes the permissions for a particular file or a list of files. Like I explained, the demo binary will be executable for everyone. Let's make sure we do this again. I'm going to run this, no errors, and now I'm going to clear and see the contents of the tree. There you go, it's now executable because the color is slightly dimmed out, but it's also the very same thing as we have on the right side. So good job. As always, I leave you with the link to the documentation on this module. There's a load of different functions that we didn't touch, but they basically do whatever's supposed to be done the same way we do in the command line, like creating symbolic links, recursive copies of files, moving files around, removing some of them, changing ownership, and many more. Be sure to check the whole list of commands on the left side and the examples that follow along with the document.